The night my life broke apart didn't start with fear. It started with a mistake. I opened my front door at 1:43 a.m., barefoot and half asleep, holding a trash bag I'd forgotten to take out earlier. The air outside was cold and sharp, the kind that wakes you instantly. I stepped onto the porch, pulled the door shut behind me, and froze. My neighbor's garage was open, wide open. That alone was strange. Gavin Holt never left his garage open. Not during the day, not even when he pulled his car in. I'd lived next to him for years, and I could count on one hand the number of times I'd seen inside that garage. Tonight, light spilled out onto the driveway in a harsh white rectangle. And inside, something moved. I didn't hear anything at first, just saw motion. Fast, purposeful. A shadow crossed the light, then another. My first thought was that he'd caught me staring, and adrenaline slammed into my chest so hard it hurt. I should have gone back inside. Instead, I took a step closer. That was mistake number 2. My name is Ethan Parker. I'm 32 years old, and I've always believed that curiosity is harmless, that it's just a personality trait, not a flaw. I was wrong. As my eyes adjusted, details snapped into focus. The garage wasn't messy like a normal garage. No boxes, no bikes, no tools on the walls. The floor was clean, too clean. In the center of the garage stood a large metal table. Industrial, bolted to the ground. Thick cables ran from it to the wall, disappearing into a control unit mounted near the breaker box, and strapped to the table. I stopped breathing. It wasn't a person, not fully, not anymore. I don't remember dropping the trash bag, but I remember the sound it made when it hit the concrete. Loud, sharp, final. The movement inside the garage stopped instantly. The light went off. The garage door started closing. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't think. I bolted into my house, slammed the door, locked it, then locked it again like that would somehow make it stronger. My heart was trying to tear its way out of my chest, my hand shaking so badly I dropped my phone twice before managing to hold it. I didn't call the police. That was mistake number 3. I told myself I was wrong, that my brain had filled in blanks too quickly, that shadows can look like anything when you're tired and panicked. But I knew what I saw. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch until sunrise with every light off, watching my front window like it might explode inward. Morning came. Normal, cruel. Sunlight erased the drama of the night like it had never happened. Gavin Holt's garage door was closed. His house looked ordinary, quiet, innocent. I told myself to forget it. Then the consequences started. That afternoon, I came home from work and found my front gate open. I never leave it open. I closed it, uneasy, and went inside. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no message, just a photo. My front door, taken from across the street. I stared at the screen, my skin crawling. The angle was wrong for a passing car, too steady, too deliberate. I rushed to the window and looked out. Nothing. Then I noticed the camera. Mounted high on the corner of Gavin Holt's house, newly installed, angled perfectly toward my porch. My pulse spiked. I moved to another window, another camera, different angle, same target. Me. That night I tested something. I turned all the lights off inside my house and moved through the rooms in total darkness. Then I stopped suddenly, pressed against the wall, holding my breath. Outside, one of the cameras moved. Not automatically, manually, tracking my position. I staggered back like I'd been slapped. The next morning, I found a package on my porch. No address, no label. Inside was a single USB drive. I didn't plug it in right away. I sat at my kitchen table staring at it for almost an hour. every instinct screaming not to touch it. I plugged it in anyway. Mistake number 4. The video file opened automatically. Security footage, multiple angles, my house, me, days worth of recordings, me leaving for work, me coming home, me standing at my window the night before. Then the final clip played, the garage, the metal table, the thing strapped to it. This time, the camera angle was clear. And this time, the thing moved, toward the camera. The screen went black. My laptop shut itself off. At the exact same moment, I heard footsteps outside my front door, slow, heavy, deliberate. I checked my phone, no signal. That's when it finally hit me. Not as fear, but as certainty. Gavin Holt knows that I saw, and whatever was in that garage, whatever plan he's executing, I was never supposed to be a witness. I was supposed to be part of it. By the third night without real sleep, I understood one thing clearly. If I didn't bring someone else into this, I was going to lose control of the situation completely. The cameras hadn't disappeared. The cars kept coming. My phone kept receiving photos. Never threatening, never explanatory, just proof. Proof that Gavin Holt could see me whenever he wanted. So I did the one thing I'd been avoiding since the garage. I called the police. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional, neutral in the way that made me suddenly feel ridiculous. "Can you explain exactly what the issue is, sir?" I tried. I really did. I told her about the cameras aimed at my house, about the late-night visitors, about the footage I'd found on the USB drive. I left out the thing in the garage. I didn't have words for that yet. There was a pause. Then, "An officer will be sent to your address." Relief hit me so hard my knees almost gave out. 2 patrol cars arrived 20 minutes later, lights flashing softly, but sirens off. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Normal life interrupted. I stepped onto my porch to meet them, feeling exposed but validated. Finally, someone else could see this. Officer Ramirez did most of the talking. He was mid-40s, steady eyes, the kind of man who'd seen enough real danger not to panic over shadows. "What exactly are you accusing your neighbor of?" he asked. "I'm not accusing," I said quickly. "I'm scared. He's watching me, recording me. He sent me footage from inside his garage." Ramirez nodded slowly. "Do you still have the video?" I brought them inside, showed them the USB drive, my laptop, the empty folder. Empty. My stomach dropped. I watched it," I stammered. "It was here. I didn't delete it." Ramirez exchanged a look with his partner. We went outside. They examined the cameras on Gavin's house, took photos, knocked on his door. No answer. They waited, knocked again. Nothing. "Cameras aren't illegal," Ramirez said carefully, "as long as they're not recording inside your home. But they're pointed at my windows." He sighed. "That's a gray area." They tried the garage next, closed, locked. After 20 minutes, they left me with a case number and advice that made my blood run cold. Best thing you can do is avoid confrontation. Document everything, and maybe invest in your own security system. Then they drove away. That was the moment things changed. Because 5 minutes after they left, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that." My hands went numb. Another message followed immediately. "They won't protect you. They already work for me." I stood there staring at the screen, the police car's taillight still visible at the end of the street. That night, the cameras moved. I watched them reposition in real time, one by one, like mechanical heads turning toward a new priority. A red light blinked on one I hadn't noticed before. Small, hidden in the gutter. inside my house. That's when the final consequence of calling the police arrived. At 2:06 a.m., my doorbell rang. Once. I didn't move. Then a knock. Slow. Controlled. I looked at my phone. A live video feed opened automatically. My front porch. Gavin Holt stood there, calm, hands visible, looking straight into the camera, into me. He smiled and spoke for the first time since I'd known him. "Now," he said softly, "you're officially involved." I didn't open the door. I stood frozen in my hallway, watching Gavin Holt through the live feed on my phone. He didn't knock again. He didn't try the handle. He just stood there, calm, patient, like someone waiting for an elevator. After exactly 30 seconds, he leaned slightly toward the door camera. "You should get some sleep, Ethan," he said quietly. "Tomorrow will be busy." Then he stepped out of frame. The feed cut off. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table until sunrise, replaying his words again and again. He'd said my name like it was familiar, like he'd used it many times before, like it belonged to him in some way. By morning, something inside me had hardened. Fear was still there, but it was no longer alone. I needed answers. I started with the police. At 9:12 a.m., I drove to the precinct instead of calling. Walking in felt different than dialing a number, more official, more real. I asked to speak to Officer Ramirez. The desk sergeant frowned at the screen. "Ramirez is on leave." "On leave?" I repeated. "He was just here last night." She shrugged. "Put in this morning, effective immediately." My stomach tightened. "Can I speak to his partner?" Another pause, more typing. "He's been reassigned." "Reassigned where?" She looked up at me for the first time. Her eyes lingered on my face a second too long. "I don't have that information, sir." I left the station with the uncomfortable feeling that I'd just been politely dismissed from something I wasn't supposed to be part of. That's when the consequence hit. When I got home, my mailbox was open. Inside was a thin manila envelope. No stamp, no address, just my name. Inside were documents. Printed emails, bank transfer records, photos, police photos. Not crime scene photos, surveillance photos. Images of officers shaking hands with men I didn't recognize. Parking garages, back entrances, envelopes changing hands. And then I saw him, Officer Ramirez, standing next to Gavin Holt, laughing. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages faster now, dread pooling in my chest. There were internal memos, too, redacted in places but readable enough. Private cooperation agreement. Off-the-record compliance. Jurisdictional discretion. This wasn't corruption in the way movies show it. No obvious villains, no dramatic threats. It was quieter than that. Cleaner. Gavin wasn't hiding from the police. He was using them. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Now you understand why they won't help. I dropped into a chair, my legs suddenly weak. "Why me?" I whispered to the empty kitchen. The answer came almost immediately. "Because you're perfect." Another message followed, longer this time. No close family nearby, no children, no one who checks on you daily. Predictable routine, technical background, and most importantly, curious. My blood ran cold. He hadn't started watching me after the garage. He'd been watching me long before that. Memory slammed into me in fragments. The first week he moved in, asking casually what I did for work. The way he'd once commented on my regular schedule, the recycling bin, the mailbox, small tests. This wasn't random. I hadn't stumbled into anything. I'd been selected. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up old emails, old texts, old delivery confirmations. My pulse quickened as I noticed patterns I'd ignored before. Packages that arrived on days Gavin's visitors showed up. Internet outages that lined up with his late-night activity. I'd been part of the system without knowing it. The garage wasn't a workspace. It was a transition point. And then I realized the most terrifying consequence of all. The thing on the table. It wasn't just a victim, it was a prototype. My phone buzzed again, a final message for the day. You can refuse, of course, but then you become the next step. Outside, I heard a car pull into my driveway, not Gavin's, mine. The engine shut off, keys rattled, inside the car. I hadn't driven anywhere. That's when I understood the full truth. This wasn't about silence anymore. This was about replacement. And whether I liked it or not, the plan had already moved on to me. I didn't grab clothes, I didn't pack a bag. I grabbed my passport, my laptop, my phone, and ran. The moment I heard the car engine shut off in my driveway, instinct finally overpowered fear. I didn't wait to see who had the keys. I bolted through the back of the house, slipped on my shoes without tying them, and burst out through the rear door into the narrow strip of yard behind my house. Cold air burned my lungs. Gravel bit into the soles of my feet as I sprinted toward the fence separating my property from the next block. My mind repeated one thought over and over: get out of the cameras. Get out of sight. I vaulted the fence, landed hard, and kept running. For the first time in days, nothing buzzed. No messages, no photos. That gave me hope. I cut through backyards, hopped another fence, then another, ignoring barking dogs and shouted voices behind me. I didn't stop until my chest felt like it was tearing open. Finally, I reached the main road 3 blocks away. Freedom. I flagged down the first car I saw, a middle-aged woman in an SUV. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. Panic is universal. "Please," I said. "I need to get to the bus station, now." She nodded and drove. As we pulled away, I looked down at my phone. No signal. Still, the bus station was busy. Bright lights, people, noise, normal life. I felt dizzy with relief. I bought a ticket with cash, sat in the far corner, and kept my head down. For the first time since this started, I believed I might actually disappear. 10 minutes passed. Then my phone vibrated. Signal restored. One message: "You're early." My blood turned to ice. I stood up, heart slamming against my ribs, and scanned the crowd. Everyone looked normal, too normal. Students scrolling on phones, an old man asleep on a bench, a couple arguing quietly near the vending machines. Then I saw him. Not Gavin, someone else. A man in a gray jacket standing near the departure board, watching me. Not directly, but through the reflection in the glass. He tapped his phone once. My phone buzzed again. Exit through the west doors. Don't make this difficult. I turned and ran. I burst through the station doors into the parking lot and skidded to a stop. 3 cars waited there, engines running, headlights off. One door opened. Gavin Holt stepped out. He looked different up close. Healthier, calmer, like a man whose life was exactly on schedule. He didn't rush, he didn't threaten, he just walked toward me as if we were meeting for coffee. "You did well," he said. "Most people don't make it this far." I backed away until my shoulders hit a car door. "You chose me," I said, my voice shaking. "This was never an accident." He nodded. "Of course not." "Why?" He considered the question seriously, like it mattered. "Because you're adaptable," he said. "Because you ask questions. Because when you saw the garage, you ran. But not to the police first. You tried to understand." My hands curled into fists. "I won't do it." "That's fine," he said gently. "You don't have to agree." He gestured to the car behind me. The trunk opened. Inside was the metal table, folded, portable, waiting. This was always the test, Gavin continued. Escape attempts tell us everything we need to know. The last thing I remember is a sharp sting in my neck. The world tilted. As darkness closed in, my phone buzzed one final time in my hand. A scheduled message. Welcome to the next phase. And then, silence. I woke up to light. Not harsh, not blinding, controlled, even. For a moment, I thought I'd gone blind. That this was death, or a hospital, or some blank in between where nothing had shape. Then sensation returned in layers, the weight of my body, the cold beneath my back, the faint ache at the base of my skull where the needle had gone in. I tried to move. Straps. My wrists first. Wide nylon restraints. Tight but not cutting. Ankles next. Chest. Thighs. Whoever had secured me knew anatomy. Nothing was pinched. Nothing restricted breathing. It wasn't meant to hurt, it was meant to hold. The room resolved slowly. White walls, seamless corners, no windows, no visible doors. The ceiling was too high, the lights embedded flush, like this place had been poured instead of built. I swallowed. My throat was dry. You're awake faster than average. Gavin Holt's voice came from my left. I turned my head as far as the straps allowed. He stood beside a stainless steel counter, hands clasped behind his back, wearing a plain gray shirt like this was just another workday. Behind him, a glass wall separated the room from a larger space, rows of monitors, equipment I didn't recognize, silhouettes of people moving efficiently. This wasn't his garage, this was infrastructure. Where am I? I asked. Below, he said simply. Far enough that phones are irrelevant. Close enough that panic doesn't become hysteria. I laughed once, short and broken. You drugged me, kidnapped me. Yes. You murdered people. No, he corrected calmly. We repurpose them. Language matters. I pulled against the restraints, harder this time. They didn't give. What do you want from me? Gavin stepped closer. That's the first correct question you've asked since this began. He tapped a control panel. One of the wall panels lit up. Footage, my footage, me at home, me running, me at the bus station, me freezing in the parking lot. Then new images appeared. Other people, men, women, different ages, different cities, all captured mid-movement, mid-escape, mid-panic. All of them were like you, Gavin said. Selected, observed, tested. I forced myself to look, to really look. Some faces were blank, others empty, not dead, just wrong. Like something essential had been removed and replaced with a copy. What did you do to them? I whispered. Gavin tilted his head. We finished the process. He gestured again, and the image changed. The table. The metal table I'd seen in the garage. But now it was clearer. Cleaner. Surrounded by machines. Arms that folded and unfolded with mechanical precision. Neural interfaces. Data ports. It's not torture, he said, anticipating my reaction. It's extraction, transfer, optimization. You're erasing people. No, he said patiently. We're preserving what matters and discarding what doesn't. My heart pounded. Why? Gavin finally looked directly at me. Not cold, not cruel, curious. Because institutions rot, he said. Governments, police, systems, they fail because they're slow, emotional, inefficient. But people trust faces, voices, familiarity. Understanding hit me in a wave so strong it made me dizzy. You're replacing them. Not all, he said, just enough. The glass wall behind him cleared, and for the first time I saw the full room beyond. There were dozens of stations, and dozens of people. Some sitting, some standing, some walking calmly between consoles. Every one of them moved with the same quiet confidence. Every one of them wore a face that belonged somewhere else. "That's why the police didn't help," I said hoarsely. "Some of them are already yours." Gavin smiled, not proudly, but approvingly. "You catch on quickly. That's why you weren't terminated after the garage." "Terminated," I repeated. "Yes, most witnesses don't get this far." A screen near my head flickered to life. My name appeared. Ethan Parker. Status: candidate compatibility, 94%. My stomach dropped. "You said I could refuse." "I said you could refuse to agree," Gavin replied. "Not to participate." I closed my eyes for a second, forcing my breathing to slow. "What happens now?" He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Now you make the only choice that still belongs to you." The restraints on my right arm loosened slightly, just enough for me to move my hand. A small tray slid out beside me. On it were two objects, a tablet and a syringe. "If you take the syringe," Gavin said, "you go to sleep. The process completes without resistance. When you wake up, you'll be improved, purposeful, free from fear. And the tablet? You stay you," he said. "For a while, you work with us, help refine selection, optimization, behavioral mapping. You're intelligent, technical, observant. You'd be valuable. And after that?" He didn't answer immediately. "That depends," he said finally, "on whether you remain useful." I stared at the two objects. The syringe promised oblivion with a smile. The tablet promised time. "What happens if I choose neither?" Gavin's expression hardened for the first time. "Then you become data." Silence stretched between us. I thought of my house, my job, the version of myself that believed curiosity was harmless. I thought of the people on the screens. Some of them probably thought they were still making choices too. Slowly, deliberately, I reached for the tablet. Gavin nodded once. Wise. The restraints released fully. As soon as my hands were free, the tablet activated. A dashboard appeared. Live feeds, profiles, schedules, names I recognized, neighbors, city officials, a news anchor I watched every morning. And then, a new alert. Integration in progress. Unit, Gavin Holt. I looked up sharply. "What's that?" I asked. For the first time since I'd met him, Gavin didn't answer immediately. The lights dimmed slightly. Somewhere deep in the facility, an alarm pulsed. Not loud, but rhythmic. Gavin's jaw tightened. "That," he said slowly, "shouldn't be happening yet." Another alert appeared. Secondary protocol activated oversight node online. The room shifted. People behind the glass paused, confusion flickering across faces that weren't truly theirs. A final message appeared on the tablet, unprompted. "Did you really think he was in charge?" I looked at Gavin, really looked, and for the first time I saw fear, not mine, his. That was when I understood the last truth. I hadn't been chosen to join the system. I'd been chosen to see it. And whatever was coming next, it wasn't following Gavin Holt's plan anymore.